Well, hello there. I wanted to do a pre-recorded review of the L1800, the direct-to-film printer. I've had it for a little over a week and a half now, and I wanted to go over some of the good things and some of the bad things. We're going to start with the negatives so that you'll know in all transparency pretty much what I've dealt with learning and getting into direct to film. One of the first things I want to point out is I do love the direct to film. So this isn't going to be some bashing and oh I wish I had a type video, but on the contrary, it's going to expose you to the negatives that I've come across, so that if this is something you're looking at getting into, then you'll be well aware of, you know, the parameters involved. So the L1800 is a direct-to-film printer, and I debuted my printer, whom I affectionately named Hercules. I debuted him on Sunday, last Sunday. So we're coming up, today is Saturday, and tomorrow will be a week since I showed the direct-to-film printer. And in this time, I've learned a lot. All right, so one of the first drawbacks to doing direct to film is that you have to become a sort of graphic artist, for lack of better words. And in learning how to work with graphics, manipulate graphics, it's not one of those situations where you can just plug in a picture, print it out, and you're good. It doesn't quite work that way. Some images you probably could do that way and get away with it, but in this instance you have to learn color balance, and you have to determine how much white to use in the background of some images in order to have them stand out a little bit better, if that's what you so choose to do. Then in other instances you may need to knock out some of the black because it's going on a black garment or a black hat. It all depends, and that was a huge learning curve for me because I'm not a graphic artist by any stretch of the imagination. I do know a little bit of my way around Photoshop, but I fully believe that something like GIMP or either Illustrator would have been a better choice for this type of manipulation of images for the white toner printing process. So I want to throw that out there. I did have to learn quite a bit, learn on the fly, do a lot of Googling to learn how to adjust and how to compensate for different colors. And in one instance where I was trying to match one of my customers' colors, just so, that was very challenging. And I ended up purchasing a NYX so that it would help me find the correct color, because this particular customer I'm taking from vinyl to direct to film, and the color of the vinyl is a vibrant, very, very bright orange, and this is the color that I've been using for them for quite some time, for a couple of years. And you know, as you see, it was close, but in my opinion not close enough. So I purchased this to try and help me catch that a little bit better, so that my customer will have the exact color for their shirts. But notwithstanding, that's one of the drawbacks to switching to direct to film. Another drawback is the software. So I mentioned Photoshop, I mentioned Illustrator, I mentioned GIMP, but those are the programs that you would use to manipulate the design prior to bringing it into your direct-to-film program, right? So your direct-to-film program is what tells the printer what to print. It's the program that tells the printer what to print. So it tells it how much white to put down. It tells it, you know, how much color, how much saturation and stuff like that. And fortunately, the program that I was introduced to seems to be fairly user-friendly. It will take some getting used to because I'm not used to a RIP software, and that also goes to say that if you do decide to go the direct to film process or even direct to garment process, you will need to learn how to rip or use a rip software. So your images can't just be sent to the printer to just print. You have to have a rip software to spool and push the image to the printer and tell it exactly what it needs to know. So that's my number 2 that was challenging, that I didn't anticipate being quite as challenging for me. So I did have to learn. I took an 1.5-hour class, and I've since replayed it several times so that I can get the knack of what I'm dealing with when it comes to dealing with the software with the printer. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Now the other drawback that I've come across with this printer is one that I didn't anticipate being quite as challenging. But if I may so quickly mention that this specific challenge is not native to just direct to film. It's native to any white ink printer, not toner printer, but white ink printer. So even direct to garment printers have this issue. And so in this case, is notwithstanding that the direct to film is going to have that issue as well. So from industry wide knowledge, the white ink is very temperamental, for lack of better words. I know I say that a lot, but the white ink is so concentrated and it's something about that white ink, it clogs easily. It's a easy to clog system. So direct to garment is worse than direct to film. Direct to garments white ink is thicker, of a more thick concentration than the direct to film ink. But it is still a thick ink. So you have to do routine maintenance with this printer. You have to print with this printer every day. You have to print with this printer daily. You cannot go 24 hours, 48 hours without printing. What you will find is a couple of things. Number one, it will clog the heads. And therefore it won't print. And number two, it will also, your white ink will separate. So I really don't know of an illustration of how to explain this, but the white ink will the pigments will separate, and you'll have like a milky white substance in your cartridges and in your tank. So with this printer, you have to shake the inks every day prior to using them, and if you don't, then you won't get that thick, nice white ink background. Like for instance, I just printed out McQuacken's and he looks pretty good, but his ink should be thicker than that on the back. When I came out here today to print, it's 11:52 going on midnight. I wasn't feeling well today, but that's a different story. So I haven't been out here, but I was printing almost all day yesterday, and I printed all the way up till about 6:30, and during the time from 6:30 p.m. till now 11:52, I haven't printed. And I came in, did not remember to shake my ink, so I'm going to definitely have to put a note on the printer and shake the cartridges, and then we'll have some printouts that have a thicker consistency of white ink on it. So the maintenance with this printer is way higher than anything I've experienced with a printer. And like even with my sublimation printer, there's maintenance that has to be done because it's not natively a sublimation printer. It's a regular printer that I converted. So I do have to do maintenance with it. I have to print at least weekly with it, and you know, make sure that my inks are where they need to be and fill it up and all of that jazz. Well, the same with this printer, but now you got to shake the tank and you got to shake the cartridges to make sure that your white ink doesn't separate. So that's a bit of a challenge. Not something that's going to discourage me from using the printer, but it's something that I have to keep in mind in using it. So I'm trying to make sure that's all of the negatives that I came up with in using the direct to film. One more negative that's actually more of a personal negative is user error. So in printing with the direct to film printer, the ink that comes out of the printer is wet. Okay, so here's Sir McQuacken's, and as you see, you can see where on the back where there's like scratches on here. That's because the image, I printed it out, it was perfect, about like this one, and I have the ceiling fan on, and for whatever reason the printer ejected another film right after this one and pushed it off of the tray and onto the floor. So your ink is wet, and it's going to stay wet because it's not thin like ink pen thin, but it's thicker than that. And as you see, you can easily smear this, right? And then you have ink on your hand. I don't know, it's not focusing as well, but you have ink on your hand, and you know, you can feel it. It's like a paste almost. So you cannot touch this once it prints out. So knocking it off or picking it up wrong or any number of those things will, you know, kind of get you discouraged if you are not careful. So you have to know to be careful, and that's even after you take it and you put it in the bin with your powders and you coat it with the powder. Even with the powder, you still can't touch it. You have to cure this after the powder has been applied. So that was another drawback, because I cannot tell you how many films that I printed that were absolutely perfect, and I picked it up wrong, or it touched something prior to me putting it in the powder, or it fell on the floor. It's just very, it will annoy you if you're not careful because it takes a while for this to print out. Sir McQuacken's, these 4 images, I say takes about 5 minutes to print out. It's not super quick, but it's not horribly long either. So, you know, you taking all of that time to have this print out and then mess it up, yeah, no, that'll get you frustrated. So aside from that, user error, it was user error. You're looking at the software on a couple of different levels, having to learn the software, having to learn to do graphics. Those are the negatives. There's maybe one more that I would say you have to make some adaptations to the printer. I had to put a green piece of foam on the printer tray so that when the printout comes out, it comes out completely straight and lays completely flat. Because before I put that on there, what would happen is the film would come out, and it would come out and angle down to land on the tray, and the back side of it would reach up and touch the undercarriage of the printer, and it would smear the ink. And so that was a horrible experience, but putting the foam here allows it to come straight out. Also, I had to cut out a section. I didn't have to cut out a section, but I chose to cut out a section of the printer so that it would allow me ease of access to those cartridges, because I have to shake them daily, or shake the white ones daily, and I have to clean the heads or where the ink comes out of those cartridges regularly. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any issues getting to that, so I cut that part out with my Dremel, so that I didn't have to fight with cutting the printer off at a certain time when the cartridge moves over and catching it and all this other jazz. I didn't want to go through that. So then in addition to that, you have to cure your ink. And what I decided to use to cure the ink is a griddle. So I just went to Walmart and bought an El Cheapo griddle, or inexpensive griddle. It was $20. And what I do is, after putting the powder on it, I lay it on the griddle and let it cook the powder, or melt the powder from the underside of the template. And you have to get that temperature just right, because some films don't like high temperatures. As you see, I laid this one on that griddle and it just like curled up, and I was like, oh my god, because this was a flawless print with flawless powder, and yet here we have the paper is practically unusable. I can use this, but you know, it's just not what I wanted to. It wasn't the results I was looking for. So learning curves here and there, different things to get used to, but when things work out well, they work out great. Like we have McQuacken's here. I think this is the right one. Hold on. Yeah, he's got scuffed just a little bit, but here's McQuacken's. I printed him out. You can see some of the scuff on the back. And I don't know if that's enough to keep him from sticking, but I have several where he printed out very well, and I didn't have any issues. I also have, like here's one for my customer that printed out really well, and I use black powder to coat it. You can choose black or white, but the reason I used black was because it's going on a black shirt. These were, and the black will allow the white to stay true. All right, and then you don't have to worry about the color of the shirt affecting the white ink. So that's why I chose to use black with that instance. So but as far as that's concerned, those are the only challenges that I've come across. The rest is it's a fairly simple process. You print it out. Once you learn the software and you get that down pat, you print it out. Once you get the print out, carefully put it in a tub, apply the powder. Once the powder is shaken and applied to the print, then you put it on the heat source to melt that. Then once you melt that, you cut it out and you can use it for storing until it's time to use it. You can ship it to someone to use, or you can just apply it right to the garment. And when I applied it to the garment, it was at 325 degrees for like 17 seconds. Beautiful, beautiful print. You peel cool, and once you after it cools off and you peel it, then I press it again for another 10 seconds just to set it and make sure. Now I do that with my vinyl anyway, so that wasn't that big of a deal. But those are the steps involved, and pretty much like you know, when you go through the whole painful process of, you know, pregnancy and the morning sicknesses and the challenges and the birth pains, and you know, but once you finally get to hold that beautiful baby and things are perfect, you see the 10 toes and just the sweet little face, and you're in love with it. And that's pretty much where I am with the DTF. I do love it. I will not go back to vinyl unless I absolutely have to. Like with this same customer, I made some security shirts and I used reflective vinyl. You can't print reflective ink, so I did have to use vinyl for that part of her order, but the rest was totally these transfers, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to showing off Hercules a little bit more and showing you guys his routine and working with him and cleaning him, how all of that works, just in case you're interested in getting into it. But we also will continue to showcase all of our other things, our embroidery, our bling, our sublimation, the whole nine. So don't think that we're going to switch the channel up to just doing that. You know, we like to show all the cool toys that you can get into to earn a small income, or earn an income in your business if that's what you choose to do. So thank y'all for allowing me to get back with you and show you the ups and downs. I apologize for not doing this sooner and checking back in with you guys earlier, but I had to wait on the software registration, which came through late Wednesday. Then I also have some personal things going on here at the house that I needed to attend to, and it just kind of took me out of the studio. So and then when I did come back in the studio Friday, I was working nonstop. So it's been busy around here and it took a toll on me. So today I had to take the day off. I didn't feel well. So at any rate, I'm looking forward to showing you guys more about DTF. If you have any questions, I'll put links in the description below. of where I purchased my DTF system, where I got the supplies from, and also a link to the live that we did on Sunday, where I went a little bit more in detail about the DTF process and the pros and cons with using DTF versus DTG, white toner, vinyl, the whole nine. We went through the pros and cons of all of it, because this is my solution to being able to do any type of t-shirt or any type of fabric that you want to do. So whether it's cotton, polyester, 50-50, whether it's a black shirt, white shirt, doesn't matter. One process, one method, and you can get it done. All right, so thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.